friends, and welcome to my channel. Different a view behind me this time. This is my office come bookcase place, book craft room, ritual space, because I'm a witch, and a bit of everything really. So I'm going to round up my August books. I've already spoken to you before in a previous video, which I'll link in this one, of the first 8 I read in the first 10 days of August. Since then I have read another 14, taking me to 22 this month, which is about average for me, and we're going to start going through them. So here we go. Okay, these will be quite quick fire because otherwise we'll be here a very long time. So the 8th book I read this month was Terry Pratchett, A Life in Footnotes, which is a biography by his long-time assistant, Rob Wilkins. This is one of the best biographies I've ever read. I love Terry Pratchett. The Discworld series are my comfort reads, and I bought them as they came out. That's how old I am. It's a tragic loss that he's gone. This tells his whole story, his whole life story, in a lot of detail, but it is so beautifully written, with such... It's obvious that Rob has such love for him, do you know, and he's obviously deeply upset at the loss of Terry. So it was just beautiful, very moving, very funny, very poignant. He was so grumpy and wonderful. So I really enjoyed that. That was a fantastic read, and yeah, I would highly recommend it if you like biographies. The next book was Gone to the Dogs by Mark Towers. Mark kindly sent me a copy for me to review. This was a great little horror novella. So it's this small town in England, like a northern town, right, where nothing really happens. And then something does happen, and the hole appears in the road and things start coming out of it, and it reminded me so much in a lot of ways of what's the one, Shaun of the Dead, because the main characters end up trapped in a pub. It's just so incredibly English, because everybody's like, oh well, okay, there's, you know, demonic entities trying to kill us, well, we'll just deal with it. It was awfully British and really good fun. Also, it was very gory, so if gory's not your thing, please don't read it and check the triggers, but I really enjoyed it. It was good fun. The next one after that was Living Carer. This is also by an indie author called PK Baker. Her name's Paulina, and I've got this on Kindle Unlimited, and again, a great horror novella, a couple of 100 pages, and it's about this woman whose life is really going badly, so she takes a job as a living carer for this man who's housebound, and there is weird stuff going on in the house. It's a proper creepy, old-fashioned possession ghost story. It is so well written. It's a debut by Paulina. I was so impressed, and yeah, I really enjoyed that one. So that's available on KU if you want to check it out. Next I read European Halls by Alan Shivers. What a great name for a horror writer, by the way. Alan is English, he lives in Belgium. He sent this to me as an ARC to read, and this is an old school slasher set in a university in Europe, which is unusual because most of these things happen in small towns in America. This is a very European, it's in Brussels, very European, very modern European city, and you know, there's a slasher stalking a group of girls and taking them out one at a time according to where their letter is in the symbol they use for themselves. And it's really good, really gory, really gruesome, great tension, great read, really enjoyed it. This also available on Kindle. Excuse me. The next one I read was Tales from the Cafe by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. That's right. This is the second in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I think there's 4 books now. This is the second one. And if you haven't read that, it's a very cozy, easy read, Japanese translation of this cafe in Tokyo, where if you sit in a certain seat, you can go back in time. You can also go forward in time, but most people go back to meet somebody who was in the cafe previously, and they pour the coffee, and you have to come back before the coffee gets cold, otherwise you get trapped there. It's a beautifully poignant read, really easy read. It's very gentle, very sad, but with this kind of positivity to it. You know, if you could go back and tell somebody something you didn't tell them before, wouldn't change anything, but if you could, would you? It's a lovely idea, really, isn't it, when you think about it? So I read that. And next was Welcome to Crimson by Daniel J. Barnes. I've actually got a physical copy of this, but I'm upstairs at the moment, and all my books, I've still got a couple of bookcases here, but the majority of my books are downstairs. As I said, most of my house is books rather than brick. But anyway, this is a great book. This is a story about when monsters and humans fought for control of the earth. And eventually the monster leader was Dracula, obviously, and he gets defeated, and his blood is drained and put into a bloodstone and hidden somewhere very deep in North America. Many centuries later, the monsters are still searching for this bloodstone, and now we're in 1987, and this young boy and his friends and his pug called Boris find out that actually their little town of Crimson is full of monsters, vampires, werewolves, all sorts of people, and everybody seems to be complicit in it or not really sure what's going on. This is a comedy, horror comedy. It's very dark. Some of the violence is very gruesome, but there is this wonderful, beautiful thread of nostalgic comedy horror. It's an absolutely brilliant book. Really enjoyed it. There's going to be a couple more after that, actually, set in the same place, because it ended where there was like, oh, hang on, something else should be happening. So there's obviously going to be a sequel, which is fine. And it's kind of like multimedia throughout it, where he's telling the story as he's telling the story. So it's like he's almost on a YouTube, actually. And he's like, oh, this is the bit and this is the reason. And he cuts in and does like a voiceover. It's really, really well done. I really, really enjoyed it. It was great. Nostalgic, 80s. Brilliant. Next one, Dry by Per Jacobson. This was sent to me to read as an ARC. And this is a speculative fiction. It's a horror too, in a lot of ways. So this man and his daughter are on an expedition to the Galapagos Islands. They've recently he's lost his wife, she's lost her mother, and then there's something happens to the ocean they're on. They're on an ocean vessel. And suddenly all the water starts disappearing. Suddenly they are in the middle of the bottom of the ocean with no water, and they have to survive. This is such an interesting idea. What would happen if all the water on Earth disappeared? What would you do to survive in a landscape that is completely alien? Because most parts of the bottom of the ocean we've never explored, so we don't know what's there. What would you find? What would be hidden? What would you eat? What would you drink with no water? This is brilliant idea. Really well written, really well executed, and really quite heartbreaking. And yeah, really enjoyed it. Really good book. I'm making it sound depressing. It wasn't depressing. It was quite hopeful, but just such an interesting thought. I mean, what would you do, right? And how far would you go to save the people you love? Brilliant. I had a bit of a pause there to have a drink. Still got a bit of a cold going on. Next one I read was /Tag by John Cohen. I got this on Kindle Unlimited, and this was absolutely brilliant. I've had such a good month. I have actually DNF 3 books, but I don't talk about the ones I DNF because everyone's, entitled to their opinion, and my opinion might be that I hated them and somebody else might love them, so I don't tend to talk about them. /Tag by John Cohen. This is about a haunted hotel, and this media company decided to put celebrities in there. I think there's 7 of them. I can't remember now. In there as like a 72-hour reality show where they have to solve the clues to be able to escape. And actually it turns into a real life horror. It is so fast paced, so well done. The characters are all, influencers, YouTubers, people who've become famous for, doing this, I suppose. And it's quite obvious that most of them have no idea what the real world is like. And it's just so well done. The clues within the house is like a labyrinth. They have to make their way through. They have to solve clues. It's just so well done, really well done. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it. It was great fun. The deaths are fantastic in that. Next one I read was Grave Expectations by Alice Bell. This is like a old-fashioned murder mystery, kind of like Midsummer Murders or, Miss Marple, that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So it's this woman, and she is a medium. And one of her best friends from school as a teenager who died when they were young is with her as well. But nobody can see her, obviously, because she's a spirit. And she's a real medium, as much as she can be in a book anyway. And she's invited by an old university friend to go to her family home to put on the entertainment for her grandmother's birthday. And then she finds out that somebody's gone missing and something is haunting this place that obviously died a violent death. It's so much fun. It's so much fun. Proper old-fashioned murder mystery. I think there'll be others in this series. The way it ends, it could be, kind of like psychic detectives. And it was just such fun. Such a great read. Really enjoyed that. Next was Creature Cross by Sarah England. I love Sarah England. If you've never heard of her, she's a UK author. Sometimes goes under S.E. England. She writes paranormal thrillers. This is a latest one. I've read them all. The Tannersdale trilogy is still my favourite. But this is about a husband and wife who move to a little town, basically a hamlet. There's hardly anything there. And as they cross over the bridge, it feels a little bit out of time, like something is not quite right. And then strange things start happening. They start hearing things. The locals are weird and over-friendly. Anyway, this is a great paranormal thriller. It deals with superstition, witchcraft, old grudges played out in modern times. It's a really, as all of Sarah's books, it's really easy to read and just a great story, a great paranormal story. 4 more to go. Let's see if my voice holds out. The next one, episode 13 by Craig DeLuey. I absolutely loved this book, and this was my favourite read of the month. If people don't know what this is, it's about a paranormal investigation team, which is run by a husband and wife, and they go to the Holy Grail of paranormal investigations, which is this institute that in the 70s experimented on people to find out if the paranormal actually existed. And this is their investigation at this institute, at the mansion that was the institute that's now abandoned and neglected. This is genuinely quite creepy. It's written again in a multimedia style, told through reports, journals, direct messages, text messages of what happened to them while they were in this place for 3 days. And, what inevitably they find out about what happened to all the people who disappeared in the 70s. It is part cosmic horror, part paranormal horror. It's just so good. It was one book I finished this month where I thought, okay, I want to go back and read that again. And that rarely happens, doesn't it? Where you think, I want to read that again because I think I've missed stuff. So much is going on. Yeah, excellent read. Really enjoyed it. Definitely on my list of favourite reads of this year. The next one was Scary Stories, the Halloween anthology by Boris Spasek. This was sent to me by Boris, as was the next one, which I'll do in a minute. These are 10 stories, 10 short stories, and they're not actually short. This book is like, on Kindle, it's a 3.5-hour book. The stories are great. There's 10 stories that goes for everything from a pandemic that goes out of control, to a deep sea mystery, to a weird room that's in somebody's apartment that they can't get into and then opens. These are really creepy little nugget morsels of horror you can pick up and put down. Absolutely brilliant for Halloween or any season. The second book I got from Boris was The Grayson Legacy. This is the story of two investigative journalists who find out that a very, very rich man has been involved in the disappearance of a woman, and so they decide to break into his mansion to find evidence to get their big break in their career. And when they break in, things do not go to plan. When they actually escape the mansion, strange things are chasing them, and the story takes on a whole new dimension. This is a horror that is really gory, really disturbing. The body horror in this is quite grotesque. If that's not your thing, it's a really good story. It starts off as one thing, as like, oh, we're going to find out this old bloke who's really rich is really a pervert, right? And then it turns into something else completely. It is really, really well done. Really well done. And then the last book of the month was The Chase by L.J. Smith. This is a trilogy, the Forbidden Game trilogy. It's point horror, and I read this as part of the Point Horror, Tales Point Horror book club. The Chase is the second book of the series. The first one we read, I think they read a year ago. And basically it's about this group of people who went into a game, a paper game, that was run by this shadow man called Julian, who is obsessed with the main lead character, Jenny. They escaped last time. Turns out now he's back in their world with a shadow serpent and a shadow wolf, taking them down one by one and leaving a burnt patch and a little paper doll to represent her friends. Can she save them this time? Really good. These are actually my favourite point horrors so far. They read not as kind of cheesy as some of the point horrors. They're a really good story. And in the first book, the descriptions of each of the rooms they went into in this house that showed them their worst fears was actually genuinely quite creepy. So I'm quite impressed, really. But yeah, so that was my reads for August 2023. I think that was 22. So on to September. Now I know it's spooky season coming up for a lot of people. Spooky season all year round for me. I always read horror and ghost stories, so it just means I can be even more spooky. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I hope you all have a beautiful day. See you next time.